Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Spiritual 411. I am Melissa, evidential medium, master instructor with integrated energy therapy and spiritual life coach. So we are here today to talk about operating systems. We're not going to be talking about computers. We're going to be talking about us, the carbon-based computer, and how we come into this lifetime as totally programmable, right? Being able to have new code written. And that's essentially what's happening with your parents and your caregivers and this beautiful brand new baby who has come into this lifetime. And there's a completely new slate, right, for the programming to be written. The caveat to that is we do come in with our unconscious or subconscious mind, which has all the old programming in it, but we have forgotten that, right? That is buried deeply. And so we come in as beautiful new babies and we are protected, divinely protected, but we are also being divinely guided and guided by these parents, these caregivers. And it's through this experience, right? 0 to 7 years where this brand new, beautiful operating system is being given to us, right? We're being taught values and morals and safety and security and do's and don'ts and faith and world, right? And so there's just so much we're absorbing in those first 0 to 7. And a lot of it is also happening, right under the surface of the consciousness. So there's a lot going on. And unfortunately, not all of us have the best experiences. We don't have um, emotionally intelligent people. We don't have people who are aware of what they're imparting to us, writing our program through what they're showing us, right? It's experiential. We're learning experientially. And if you had told me in Child Psych 101 back, gosh, 30 years ago now, when we had that conversation, nurture versus nature, and I was like, nurture, 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 right? Well, experience and learning has taught me that unfortunately there's way more nature that goes into that. And, we could talk about DNA. We can talk about, the codes that you come in with through your DNA. But I'm not the scientist. So that's a conversation that you're going to have somewhere else, right? But for us in our spiritual conversation, they come in with the best of intentions. Very rarely do you have people seeking you out to destroy you, seeking you out to set you up for failure. Does it happen? Sure. But as a child, 99% of us, right? We have the best intentioned parents. We have the best intentioned caregivers, and they want to love us. They want to be there for us. But again, if they don't have the emotional intelligence, if they don't have the experience, one of the things that I think we can all agree on is babies don't come with a playbook. Like there's no instruction manual. We're kind of flying blind. And if you're a new parent and you're young or inexperienced, some of the things that you impart to that child is very unconscious. You're doing it from that place of your own fear. You're doing that from a place of your own pain and your own trauma or drama, the stories that you've been given that you now tell yourself, right? We pass all that stuff on, whether we mean to or not. And because our children, or the children that we're parenting, whether they're our biological children or not, they're getting this information by watching you, right? So it's not always, what you tell them, right? What's the old adage, do as I say, not as I do? And unfortunately, they're learning the doing. So even though you may not want them to learn your bad behaviors or your bad unconscious ways of being and doing, unfortunately, they're picking that up. And so here we are, right? We get to a point in our life where we've picked up this programming, right? And some of the things that we're holding on to because memory for most children doesn't really start until around the age 5. And most of the time, the memories that we may remember before then have a real visceral emotion attached to it, which is why we remember it, because it's that feeling, right? And some people remember that feeling and they don't remember what happened to uh, create that feeling, right? So here we are, we're going through life and we don't understand, why we keep having the same type of partner. We don't understand why we keep having the same type of relationship with money, no matter how much we make or how much we have. And so we have these unconscious patterns that was informed, right, from that very early programming, right? Lack consciousness from our parents, lack of emotional intelligence, from our parents who may have not been emotionally aware, tapped into their own emotions, right? And so here we are, we're out here flying a little blind or flying unconsciously. And we're trying to have better experiences. We're trying to have better situations, better money, better home, better relationships, better family, better children. Most of us want, better for our children than we had. And, I'm not demonizing parents. I'm not demonizing experiences. It just kind of is what it is at this point, right? We grew up in a time, for most of us, it was the Cold War. So fear was rampant. We were being raised by parents who had been raised by parents from, some effect of the Great Depression. So there's lack consciousness, right? Lack of money, lack of resource, lack of support. And so, it's all this unconscious patterning that we've taken on. And if you're a little younger than I am, then there's other societal patterns that you can tap into. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to be talking to those of us who are around my age, right? Around the 50-year mark. And so here we are. And we can't figure out why we can't have what we want, right? We're not having the partners we want. We're not having the money we want. We're not having the goals acknowledged that we want. We're not attaining what we want. And so here we are. And we're like, why is these things not happening, right? I'm reading the law of attraction books. I'm watching the videos. I'm, doing what I think, right, is going to get me all the things that I want. And unfortunately, it's that programming that's holding you back. It's that programming of, you're not good enough, or I need you to be quiet, or, stay out of things, or don't go towards your dreams. Don't try to achieve things that, play small in effect, right? Or, for some of you, you were abused. You were emotionally abused. Again, lack of emotional intelligence on your caregiver's or parent's part, right? And or you were verbally abused. Maybe you were raised in a household where, shouting at each other was how they communicated, and they didn't realize how that was affecting you. For some of you, there was mental abuse, right? Mentally, playing games with you, telling you that, you don't know what you know, or, um, you know, uh, making you believe, things that were untrue. And so it really impacted you, and for some of you, there may have been sexual abuse. There may have been, other abuses that were, again, perpetuated by people who not necessarily were meaning to, right? I mean, in some cases it was very choice. Like it was very much a choice. For some of it though, it wasn't, right? And so we all have these like these different spectrums of, levels of what we've gone through, right? And no level is more or less than another, because your experience is your experience and nobody can take your experience away from you. So even though maybe you're looking at your situation and going, well, it wasn't as bad as this person, it doesn't matter. Your experience is your experience. And that's what we need to address, right? We need to get out of this idea that because I didn't have it that bad, it wasn't bad or it didn't negatively impact me. And you know, one of the things that's going to be really important as you go through this process is to become very self-aware of where you are kind of on this emotional chart, you know, and really look at where you are vibrationally in your emotions. And so, you know, are you still down here in fear and grief and unworthiness and powerlessness? Or are you maybe a little higher in criticism and judgment and grief and anger? Or have you moved more into contentment and boredom and ho hum? You know, things are what they are, right? I've accepted where I am at. It's never going to get better. It's not going to get worse. Here I am, right? And maybe I've done some self isolating in this point, right? So now we've got to move out of that. We've got to kind of get up into gratitude. We've got to get up into self love. We've got to get up into self compassion. And for some of you that have been, you know, it started really low, you started down here in, you know, dealing in emotions of maybe greed, um, lust, you know, or most of you, I don't think are going to be, you know, watching this video aren't going to be that low. Because that's really now we're talking, you know, overt and covert narcissism. We're talking sociopath, we're talking dark empath, you know, definitely videos to come, right? We're gonna definitely dive into those energies. But for you, I feel like, you know, you are more in the, you know, anger, grief, victimization, powerlessness, unworthiness, because of the imprint that, you know, you have been exposed or even brought into this lifetime with you. Because again, we do have those unconscious patternings that do get unlocked as we get triggered, as we get older. And for some of you, you were kind of brought into family situations that did trigger those generational patterns, because that was one of the contracts you came into this life experience, was to clear generational trauma, not just your own. And you know, some of that, you know, is you know, addiction, alcoholism, um you know, sexual addiction, um you know, just a lot of really really dark stuff that you know, generationally you know, would show up in your family line and family lineage. And now it's time to transmute that and end that. And so for some of you who are watching my videos, you've been going through it, right? You've really been traumatized, but it unfortunately was because you were brought in as a light. You came into this life lighter. You were born lighter, vibrationally lighter than your family members. And so, you know, you can call yourself the chosen one, you can call yourself the black sheep of the family. But really, you came in lighter because you were coming in to transmute a lot of that heavy dark energy that was your parents carried, and generationally. And so, you know, for those of you who had, you know, some deep, dark secrets in your family, you know, generations past, and sometimes we find out about that stuff and you're like, oh my God, that happened in my family. But, you know, you are coming into this lifetime because of where we are in this time. You know, we're in unprecedented times of the planet raising the vibrational frequency of the planet, you know, from 3D to 5D. And if this is the first time you're hearing that, definitely go into my playlist of 5D awakening, and that there's videos there explaining that. But so here we are, right? We're traumatized. We're holding really dense energy from generational. You know, we've got very destructive or vibrationally low, or you know, traumatized parents. However, caregivers, however you want to assign the label, whatever you're comfortable with. Honestly, you know, it's all about what you're comfortable with at this point, especially if you're someone that is really kind of feeling like you're in it. You're hurt. You're feeling like you don't know why, you know, certain things keep happening in your life, why you keep having the same types of relationships, why you keep losing the career or the job. You know, what is it that's making things not work out for you the way it's working out for other people? And this is why, because you have taken on and you've been programmed with a lot of very dense energy. And for some of you, you've been addicted to it. You've been drawn to it. When you grow up with a very early age, being in very fearful situations, you get that adrenaline rush or that cortisol spike, and it becomes your normal to feel that rush and to feel that pit of your stomach, feel that feeling in the pit of your stomach. We find that that becomes our normal. If I don't feel that adrenaline rush, if I don't feel that cortisol spike, I'm not okay, because that's my normal, right? That's how I grew up. Like, I would get that spike, and then something horrible would happen, and I would overcome it. And that's, for me to be able to overcome things or to move on from things, like, things have to fall apart. Things have to get so bad, right, that my whole nervous system gets a spike. And you can get addicted to that because there is a rush, right? There is a rush that comes with that. So there's a lot of you out there that are like, why is my life not looking like, others' lives who seem to go along to get along, and they're getting everything they want and everything's working out for them? Or even bad people, right? Bad people who maybe aren't living morally or don't have integrity, but they're still making the money. They're still having these great relationships. They're still going on the amazing vacations, right? Because the universe doesn't know negative, right? The universe doesn't, it just meets you where you are. So even if you're someone who isn't morally inclined or you don't have integrity, if you have the belief that you deserve things, you're still going to receive them. The universe is still going to bring it to you, right? It's only when you get to the other side of the veil when you kind of have to have a reckoning with God or Christ consciousness, or, whoever you believe in. Like, that's when you kind of do the review. Like, did you complete the assignment? Did you address everything you went into that lifetime to address? And so these people that don't look like they're good people, right? But they're still having the house, they're still having all the things, they're going to get that karma, right? That karma that they're going to have to deal with, right? So we have to stop judging other people's experiences, and we absolutely have to stop comparing our situations to others, because we came in with our own mission, our own purpose, and we have to address that. And how are you going to figure what that is? It's that internal drive that's always taking you towards some goal, right? Some way of being and doing that you keep coming back to. It's like a beacon that keeps calling you back. That's why when people get way off course sometimes, like if they're not listening to their intuition, their lives just fall apart. And that's basically spirit's way of course correcting you and saying, you got too far away from the mission that you came in to do. And so we had, you weren't listening to the synchronicity, you weren't listening to the signs, you weren't listening to the dreams, you weren't listening to all the information we were bringing you in all the ways. And so your life had to come crashing down, because we really need you over here, right? Taking care of what you came in this lifetime to take care of. And you kept drifting away. You kept getting caught up in the materialism. You kept getting caught up in the 3D toxicity of, competition. And, 3D, third dimension energy is all about patriarchy and competition, keeping up with the Joneses. And that's not what we're here to do. We came in to be of the higher vibration. We are to be, draw in the light to this planet, into this, I was going to say vortex. I feel like we're creating a vortex and pulling the light through for our own personal vortex. That's, bringing the light onto the planet for all of us, and raising the frequency of the planet, but also raising the frequency of your own individual experience. And when you get too far away from that, Christ consciousness, God, it's going to bring you back, right? And so if you're someone that's like, I keep missing out. I keep losing out. I keep being dumped out of, right? Different experiences, situations, relationships, finances, whatever it is. It's because you're getting too far away from your mission. And, if you're here with me, your mission has a spiritual component. Your mission has the component of being a light and raising your frequency, as high as you can in this lifetime. Getting out of the anger, getting out of the criticism and judgment, getting out of the toxicity and getting into the light, getting into the compassion, getting into the gratitude. And so, doing that can be really, really hard, especially if the programming you came in with or were given in that first 0 to 7, was all about toxic energy and trauma and negative stories that you believe about yourself, your situation, your family, whatever you were told that isn't based in love, that isn't based in higher frequencies of compassion. And so this is the journey you're on, is to bring you back to your true north, which is universal source love and compassion and gratitude, and not only embodying that for yourself, but then sharing that with the people and situations around you. And so it can be really tough, especially if you are holding on to unconscious beliefs and traumas that are keeping you from being able to raise your frequency in the way that you really desire to, so that you can manifest the things that you want. And so you have to embark on a journey of releasing. But how do you release something that you don't even know you're holding on to, right? How do you release a story that you're telling yourself that you're unaware of, or you're holding on to a trauma that you're unaware of, or you're unaware of it to the extent that you're holding on to it? You might know that and feel that you're holding on to resentment from your parents, but you may not realize just how visceral that resentment is that's being held in your emotional body. Emotions are energy, and energy cannot be destroyed. Energy has to be changed. So you have to have some kind of way to transmute these negative energies back into positive, back into the light. And so that's why it's so important to become so self-aware of what you're holding on to. Why things like journaling, free writing, meditation is so important, because it helps you to tap into that unconscious, but it also helps you to tap into the levels of what you're holding on to that you may not even recognize. So you can absolutely change the programming that you were given as a very young child through giving yourself compassion and also forgiving those who hurt you. And forgiveness isn't about letting anybody off the hook. The forgiveness that you're giving is the releasing of that hold that it has on you. And it doesn't mean you have to let them back in your life. It doesn't even mean you have to let them know that you've done it. You don't have to contact them. You don't have to let them know in any way. This is about you. This is about your journey. This is about where you are on that emotional scale, and getting you out of anger and abandonment and resentment and threat and would've, could've, should'ves and powerlessness and unworthiness and shame. Shame. It's crazy how we can feel shame about things that we didn't do. We can feel shame for things that we feel like we should have done. We can feel shame for things that were done to us that we had no power over. And it's time to release that. It's time to transmute that energy back into love, self-love. And that's why it's so important to become self-aware so that you can get into the self-love that you deserve, especially for those of you who did not receive it unconditionally from your parents who were, their own, carrying their own form of trauma, their own form of unawareness, really. And so this is what you're being asked to do. This is what you're being called to do, is to love yourself and give yourself compassion and change that story, change that trauma, transmute it. And forgiveness is going to be powerful, truly powerful. And if you struggle with the idea of forgiveness, this is where you want to go to your higher power and really, really ask for the help to be able to forgive and release what it is that you are holding on to. And so you don't have to be stuck. You don't have to think that this, because I was raised this way, I have to deal with it, right? You can change it, but you have to do that from the inside. And you're given everything you need on the inside through your connection to your higher self and to source. And so at this point, what I want to do is Mary Magdalene wanted to come in and help us with this today. And so Mary Magdalene was the partner of Jesus, and she is also an ascended master in her own right. And she comes in on the red ray, helping you with courage, helping you to tap into your divine feminine and passion, sacral chakra, root chakra, safety and stability. She's absolutely here to help you in the way that you need. And for her, she's letting you know that she's helping guide you to your purpose, that it is time for you to live in your purpose, your mission. And so what you have been holding on to, what you have been held down by, the programming that has blocked you from being able to tap into your divine feminine, your mission, the authentic version of you, that she's coming in to help you because it's time. And so I have 3 messages. And the first one is the 5th power. I am body and a soul. And I love that this was the first message because we are multidimensional. We are not just the physical vessel. We are not just our 5 senses. That what you're coming into connection with to help you tap into your mission and your purpose and rewrite your programming, basically tapping into the programming of who you are at a soul level, is because you're now getting into connection with your multidimensionality. So I'm going to read this. The 5th power. I am a body and a soul. This is what it means to be human. We forget we are not only this body, we are not only these fears and desires the ego conjures. We are also equally and entirely a soul. We are both, but we forget, and this is not a punishment. This is not due to some defect or weakness in what it means to be human. The fact that we forget again and again about the other half of who we are is always and in every circumstance an opportunity. Every time we can remember is in bring back together the eternal half of who we are with a human aspect of our nature. We practice what it means to be a true human being. A true human being, according to the Gospel of Mary, is anyone who tries, imperfectly but consistently, to be both their human self and their soul. This is for me what Mary is describing in her Gospel when she says, In a world, I was set loose from a world and in a type from a type, which is above and from the chain of forgetfulness which exists in time. Mary, 9:28. In the midst of being entirely immersed in the fifth power in forgetting, I bring some fragment of that other half of who I am, some shred of light into the depths. It might be a memory of what it feels like to fall in love at first sight. It might be a memory of a kiss that took my breath away. In a world of the soul, I was set loose from the world of the ego. This is how the chain of forgetfulness is broken. We remember. We remember what joy is to be human. We remember the light that pierces through our most tragic moments if we can have the strength to let it. We remember that we are not just this heartbreak the ego endures. We are also a love that is stronger than death. We are also a soul of love that always seeks to love through us. So Mary is bringing you the message of remembering, because it is time to step into your multidimensional wholeness, marrying the physical and the non-physical, tapping into the soul aspect of you, your higher self, that brings forth the messages and the blueprint for the mission that you are here, that you signed up for, that you agreed to. Presence. Staying present. I call myself back from all times and all places. Having the presence, present moment. If you stay present, listening to that inner voice, that soulful self that is bringing through the messages to what and how you can navigate all situations in your life the easier way, the faster way. They are giving you the shortcuts to the roadmap of your life. And it is through staying present that you are able to hear them, feel them, know them, see them. Because it is time for you to be witness to the true version of yourself, to be fully seen for the light that you came in to this lifetime to be. It is time. Call on Mary Magdalene to help you know your mission, to help you reveal yourself, to be seen, give you the courage, drop the imposter syndrome, love yourself. It is time. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.